I was born on Treaty 8 territory in northern British Columbia, known as Chetwynd. It was 2,900 people if we're lucky, one stoplight, and we were the only Latinos for a couple hundred kilometers. At the time, people would think Guatemala is like a province of Mexico. And so you meet new people in the area and they're like, oh, so you're Mexican? And I was like, no, and proudly that my parents were from Guatemala and what that meant and why they came here. I'm Pedro Chamale. I'm a playwright, director, performer.
Guatemala, another Central American nation embroiled in a situation tragically familiar. Leftist guerrillas fighting a rightist-oriented army for control of the country.
My dad was displaced during the coup in Guatemala off of farmland, moved into the city, and grew up, you know, kind of on the wrong side of the tracks and doing bad things. And he reached an age where he realized he wasn't going to rise above his station. And so he left everything he knew, got on a bus, and came to Canada. I learned storytelling from my father. He would read to me every night, and so I learned the art of storytelling from him and how he entertained his friends, and so then that led into high school and where I did theater classes and the love of performance and crafting story. And then as I went through theater training, which is very influenced by white, European, standardized form, I adopted that and realized and thought I had to erase who I was. So then when I got out of school, when I started my own company with Derek Chan, Rice and Beans Theater, I wrote pieces that were about home, that were about identity, without making them about identity, so that I wouldn't be, yeah, you just write work about identity, about, you know, immigrants, and I didn't want that, so I developed the craft. And then after that, we were like, why are we kidding ourselves? Why am I not writing in Spanish? I speak Spanish. And so I started, and exploring the story of my parents and other activist-based work and meeting community, creating community. That's where the whole of me was able to shine, was embracing that part of me that I thought I had to hide for art, but making art through that part of me.
Why did you marry me? And you always said no. Because I didn't think you meant it. Maybe you should have.
My experiences are not universal, but by being specific, I hope to connect to other folks. I remember I did a show that was in Spanish and in English, was set in a boxing ring. It was about my dad's illness that occurred back in '99. And it was really my mom's story, though, about how she cared for him through the hospital and all this stuff. And they would fight, they would box. It was choreographed and not choreographed. And we had a Mexican family come one night, and we had a talk back with my mom, who happened to come to the show. And they told us how that was their story. And I was like, oh, you two are suffering an illness and we're an amateur boxer. And he's like, no. But the story of migration, the story of being discriminated against for our accents, for being thought less than because we're not of a certain type of immigrant, rang true. I felt both. The oppression from being pigeonholed about the characteristics of what media portrayed Latinx people as. I knew who I was very young and fought for that, but then also at times felt very stereotyped because of it. This one's yours.
Okay.
And then this one will be yours.
Gracias.
Julia? Mm-hmm. Alicia?
Alicia.
Alicia, because you're anglicized, but you call her Alicia, right? Like it's a dig. If you're
And I'm Julia.
Well, you say Julia, but you still call her Julia. She's reclaiming that like identity and the proper.
And I'm trying to
No, you just
assimilate as much as I can.
If I were to have to start from where I started today, the path is radically different.
What do you want?
Mom's care home bill just came in the mail.
Finally.
I told you that we needed to start paying as soon as she went into the home.
Paying what? We needed to know how much her pension would cover before we knew how much we'd have to pay each month.
Not only have funders recognized the need for support for emerging artists, there's also less venues in the city than when I started. Venues are disappearing. And so the way we did it at Rice and Beans when we first started was able to rent hole in the wall for $1,000 a week. There aren't many places you can do that anymore.
Make sure to give me the dates you're going to be here so we can have the spare room ready for you.
About that, they booked me a hotel room in town. I'll come to the house for a visit.
And so the best I can do through the work I do is to help bring those folks who are stepping into the field to where I am now at faster than I ever could imagine so that they can exceed me and go further than I ever will. Let's stop there. That's good. We're good. Nice. Thanks. It's been, what did we say, 10 years since you've been home?
So we haven't seen each other at all in 10
No,
years.
you've gone down and you've seen her, but she hasn't come back to the hometown.
Right.
Because she was born here.
Yeah.
You were born in Guatemala.
Yeah.
But in theory, she should have more of a connection to where you live, but she
Yes.
doesn't.
Great.
She's like, cut that off. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it again. There's lots of hope for the future. From the slow change at funding levels that has to happen because they're institutions, of recognizing the value of cultural work not just being relegated to community work, that it is high art doing cultural work, that there's value in that creating spaces that folks who have not been welcomed into theater, into music halls, behind a camera, that there's value in that creating that wealth is only going to make society better.
Mom was also bawling, and she looked at me. Pensaba que tú odiabas a tu hermanita. ¿Cómo no, mamá? Yo amo a mi hermana. Entonces lloras porque la vas a extrañar. Vas a estar triste de no tenerla cerca.
When I came here to Vancouver 20 years ago, I never heard Spanish while walking down the street. And now I'm walking down the street, my ears are perking up and I'm trying not to listen in and, but it warms my heart to see how the demographics are shifting, that our community is growing, and hopefully the work I make will reach them, that I can invite them in. We also have to turn that in to ourselves about what are our stories, what does it mean to create art through the context of being here in Canada, of being removed from our homelands, of separated from our families, of having to arrive here different ways, of either an immigrant or a refugee, and how is the art that we make here uniquely different because we are here.
You're just doing the same as we did. You have chosen to take the same path of striking out on your own, to find what calls you. We came here so you could have that option. If you are happy with what you have chosen to do with your life, then so are we. We are so proud of you. That line always gets me.
It hits, holy shit, it hits harder now that my dad is actually dead.
Gracias, Pedro, Senior.
Yeah. Yeah. My father did die this morning, and when my father died this morning, I thought of the ways I've honored him through the work, and the ways I can continue to honor him in what is to come. A lot of that is bringing now the activist part of me into the work, along with the cultural part of me and the artistic part of me, and throwing that all together. Because my dad was highly political, labor-focused. He started the union at the mine. He taught me all about the value of workers' rights when I was little and striking. And so for him to pass today, when I get to speak on camera about it, to know that my art will continue that legacy through the way I know how to do it.